work site, for example, server room. So we have electrical safety guideline. You can explain about the electrical safety guideline that we have. Safety guideline to protect lives, structure, and equipment. So we can have these things.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, it's hang. It's not moving.
Sorry?
The screen is hang, ma'am.
Okay. Anyway,
You're
you
talking
have
about the
guys question. I don't share my screen. You already have the questions. I'm talking about the question 1 of knowledge assessment. For question 1, work and health safety that you consider for server room. You already have lots of things you can find on the Google. Totally, we are talking about the electrical safety guideline. We talk about the safety guideline that protect lives, structure, and equipment. To avoid these things, what damages to the computer, to the servers, what we can do, you should explain about this kind of stuff. That's fine, Akhbaya. Everyone has questions, so they can just have a look on their question and they can take a note. Okay? Just unshare. You don't need to share. The other question is summarize the procedure of designing an internet protocol address scheme. You need to see that what network address you have, and then you can do, I can share. That's fine. Everyone knows that what is the question. They can open the question in front of themselves and they can take a note. Armando, that's fine. I'm talking about question 2. You can say that, for example, for which devices you need to assign a static IP address, for which devices you can assign public IP address, and how you can do, for example, VLSM, or you can segment your network, for example. You can mention about these things, how you can design IP address in your network. Question number 3, installation. Consideration for proper, for example, for installing of the router, install and secure area and connect proper cables and interfaces according to company documentation or policy. For configuration, assign router name according to the company naming convention. Configure password to access router via console or network. So this, you already know that how you can, what configuration you need to do on the router. For the testing, you can connect the console cable from PC to the router. You can use PuTTY or other emulation program to access to the command line to access to the router. You can use enable to go to the privilege exec mode, then check the connectivity of the router to host, and you can use ping command, you can use tracer, whatever, to see that if it is working or not. For the switches, you should install switch on each floor and interconnect those switches in a secure place. For configuring the switching, you can assign name, set password, then you can, based on the name, should be based on the company policy, naming policy. You can configure VLANs, management IP address, or whatever on the switch. You can mention whatever configuration that you can do on the switch. For testing, you can connect through the console, or via PuTTY, you can use enable to go to privileged exec mode, perform the connectivity, something like this. You should explain about this stuff. Part 2, question 1, summarize 7 layers. You already know that we have 7 layers. You should explain about each layer. Question 2 of part 2 is clarification of network design. You should explain about the star and mesh networks, that how they are connected in star, how they are connected in the mesh, and advantages and disadvantages of star and mesh network. You can find many information on the internet. How to apply network protocol when troubleshooting. You can explain about the ICMP protocol that is used for example, ping is a tool from ICMP protocol that used for reachability. The other thing that you can mention is about the internet protocol. Using ipconfig, you can see that which IP addresses you already assigned. And for example, you can talk about the DNS protocol, DNS dynamic network host configuration, DNS domain name services, and why you are using, for example, DNS and NS lookup is a tools that we can use in DNS to see that, for example, if translation is doing well or not, or DNS is working or not. You can mention about these things or any other things that we have. Question 4, network security solutions. You can talk about the DOS, denial of service attack, and how we can avoid DOS. Using antiviruses, anti-malwares, and updating the, for example, installing the patches, updating the Windows, and something like that. You can talk about these things. Whatever security policy that you can consider for your network. Part 3 is about the network traffic analyzer and the software tools. For example, network traffic analyzer like NetFlow or Wireshark. This is the things that you can mention as an example. You have other things as question 2, identify and describe common hardware equipment used in internet network. For example, firewall, router, switch. Internet works, we can to dynamic for internet work, we can use firewall or router. You can mention firewall and router, explain about these things. Part 4, application that you can use. You can talk about the ERP system and antiviruses, virus. You can talk about the antiviruses and requirement influencing the life cycle in today's enterprise networks. Change business requirement, IT governments, and compliance, and you can talk about these things. I just put it in there for question 2. This is 2 things that it explains. Question 3 is manageability requirement. You can talk about scalability, fault tolerance in the network. Question 4, quality of service. You can talk about the service congestion that caused that various web-based application does not guarantee the stable services, the problem that could exist here, or TCP/IP network are experiencing growing bottleneck and congestion due to explosive growth of internet usage and increase the traffic. You should mention about the problems that we have can affect quality of service. Part 5, lots of questions, guys. Explain how business requirement. You can talk about, for question 1, part 5, you can talk about the business scale change. Part 5, question 1, just mention part 5. Question 1, business scale change. You can most mission critical offices. Explain about this kind of stuff. Question 2, physical and financial constraints. That you can just do research and find out what is the physical and financial. Explain how security consideration would impact the design of the network. Physical security, you can talk about the physical, how you can secure physically. For example, lack of equipment, put it in the server, monitor and control the entries using logging system, network device configuration, and you should mention about all the things. The policy that you can use to secure. Question 4, wired and wireless option would impact the design of the network. Again,